Okay, hello everyone. There, there she is. That was funny. Okay,
Hi,
Georgia, you,
I always do it a little differently. I guess have to keep things exciting.
okay, do you want to introduce us, Georgia? We're going to do the introduction. I don't know.
I forget who is going to do, but yeah. So my name is Georgia Terry. This is the Humans and Wildlife Show. With me, as always, is my co-host, Dr. Christian Sase. Christian, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, hi Georgia. That's a funny start. It's that's the fun of a live show. Anyway, thanks, David, immediately for the award, which I think we don't deserve for this rotten start. But anyway, thanks.
Give us credit. Give
But
us credit. Thank you, David. Nice to see you.
but anyway, it adds a lot. It's actually a very important topic. We're going to talk about bird mortality and the collision into windows. I think every one of us must have heard it at some time. Just suddenly bang, and we wondered what that was. Oh, it's just another bird. And then we look out, and very often the bird seem to have disappeared, and everything seems to be fine. So we'll be discussing that. What really happens?
Yeah, and
Okay.
of course, it's not just birds. I have to point out, of course, it's also some bats. But yeah, windows can be very confusing for wildlife um, of many types, especially those ones that are flying around. So we're going to be talking about, yeah, the hazards of that and why it happens and what you can do, some of the things you can try to do to make your windows safer for wildlife and um, yeah, and yeah, keep problems from developing.
So let's just ask you, the audience, in the beginning, what do you think the biggest cause of bird mortality is? Let's say the first two or three factors. What would you think they are? You know, I
And I
mean,
have to specify the biggest sort of human related causes of bird mortality, right? Not the
absolutely,
natural
absolutely,
death
yes,
ones. Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, thanks,
Yes,
thanks, David.
put it in the comments what you think this is. We have one sort of wise ass comment from David Howden about hitting Windows because Microsoft makes such terrible software. I don't disagree these days, unfortunately. Um,
Lead poisoning, okay, let's go on. So you think lead poisoning, pesticides, yes, okay, pesticides,
yeah,
right. Hmm.
we have a lot of good comments here. I'm just sharing some of them.
Go on, just put your comments
A
in.
couple for pesticides. Yeah, go on and put them in the chat, everybody.
Put them in, please. Let's wait a minute or so because this is
Yeah.
really. Hi, Pablo from Los Angeles. Very nice to see you. So, Pablo, tell us disturbance and so consequent starvation. Okay, David, can you be a bit more specific on that? Where does it come from? Okay, here we go again. Poison. That's rodenticide. Yes, not windmills. Okay, good. I think it
Yeah.
should be mandatory when building high rise. Okay, we'll get to that in a moment, Shirley. You're absolutely right. We'll get into the legislation factor too. Okay, so that's a great topic. Thanks for reminding us. We're going to do that. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah, we want to
Okay.
hear. I'm a little bit disappointed because we've talked about some pretty big causes of bird mortality on the show that people have not brought up in the comments.
Okay,
So,
here comes the shock. Georgia, do you want to put in the stats, and I'll explain them if you.
yes,
Um,
I will. So, um, if I can find them, here we go.
Okay, yeah, that's it. You should be able to
Oh,
see it. So
nope.
cats. Yes,
Yes.
We are
Thank you,
blocking the
Tyra. Cats. That's what I was wanting people to get at. We've
so
talked about
that's the word
cats.
feral cats, or what you said. So those are domesticated cats that are running wild outside. You
Yeah.
can't even see
And
where it's
I do
stretching to.
kind of have yeah, I do kind of have to interject. I mean, I'm going to take myself off for a second so we can see the bars because they're
Yeah,
going
yeah,
so far.
do
I
that.
guess they're going
Okay,
so far
and take
this
me off
way that
too. It's
yeah.
fine, Georgia. Just take
No,
me off
it's
too.
just
Okay,
for a second so they can
okay.
see those like numbers down here. So like the bigger the bar, the more that
You can
more
see, and
dead birds
they're
from this
going to
factor.
1
Yeah.
billion. So we have 1 billion on Windows.
Yeah.
We have 1 billion on stray
Hmm.
feral cats. And then come the others. There was electrocution. There were windmills. There was the poisoning and so on. Pesticides and so on. However, these are, yes, it really is, it comes in as an absolute shock. I myself, I knew about the cats one, but I didn't know that windows are so solar panels. Those are minor things.
Um,
Laura says can't
so
hear
sorry.
you. Okay, I hope you can hear me. Sorry, just Georgia, 1 second. Are there any audio
No.
problems here?
Yeah, I was just going to repeat Christian that way in case you're the one that can't be heard. Can let us know if you can hear me and or Christian. Okay, Pablo says they can hear us. Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All good. All
And
good.
yeah, so a couple interesting things. One, this is feral cats, but I kind of think that this is maybe a little bit of a misnomer. I bet that it's not feral cats, but free roaming cats. So probably including people's domestic house cats that they let outside and like like barn cats that are still maybe half feral. Because I know that domestic house cats that have an owner, they're not really feral, but they still also kill a lot of birds too. So and thank you everybody for commenting on the sound quality. I wonder if it's a thing. Well, someone else from Facebook says it sounds good too, so that's good. And then we did have an interesting comment. I don't know if you know the answer to this, Christian, but the Windows bar doesn't start at 0; it starts at 100. If we notice that, so someone was asking why that is. And
Oh,
yeah.
yes, that is because, okay, I can explain it, of course.
Good.
That is an estimate in North America between 100 million and over 1 billion. That's why. Okay, they know for sure that it is, but the correct estimates are very difficult. I'll get into the literature in a moment. But it looks more like it's closer to the billion figure actually than 100 million. But scientifically, they're giving the whole bar. That's why.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this isn't like a bar chart. It's
Mm,
not showing us counts.
yeah.
It's showing
Mm.
us the different ranges of the estimate.
And just as ridiculous, I mean, I know the next question is how can the cats then start at 0? Okay, okay, I get it, I get it. That was a good point. I don't know the answer. Okay, okay, we'll get into all those points, Stanley, and so on. So let's just discuss this a little bit, where this is actually coming from. Can I ask you all another question? So we know now that collision of birds into windows is a major factor. What do you think actually happens when birds collide? Just imagine, running into a window at high speed. Why do they die? What do you think? What is the cause of death actually? So put it in as a comment, please.
Yeah, Christian wants you to imagine as if you are the doctor in a detective like crime show. You're doing the autopsy. You're like, how did this bird die? I mean, obviously it hit a window, but like internally, like, yeah, does it I don't know, it like gave itself a concussion or it broke its neck or
Brain
just
hemorrhage,
learning
or
how
yeah,
they
brain
did.
hemorrhage is one. Is it or is it broken neck? What do you think is the main cause? I mean, so we have one on brain hemorrhage. We'll comment on that in a moment. Yes, broken necks. Yes, cats. Okay, we'll leave the cats out of
Well,
this
like
one.
they hit the window and then the cats get them. It's like
That's yeah,
that's
that's a
it.
consequential death, right? That's the one causing from the other, right? That's
Yeah. And I mean,
um,
it's yeah, certainly I'm sure it happens. Yeah, because the bird is disoriented on the ground. Yeah.
Yes, even broken wings. Okay, so
Yeah.
thank you very much for those comments. Stanley was actually spot on. I'll just read out to you what we know so far about bird mortality and windows. So the research really started with an ornithologist called Daniel Clem. Daniel Clem, and he started in 1974. So he's been studying this for a long time, and he was aware of this, and his papers are recited everywhere. He has even written a book, and I will uh, share that with you later. It's just come out end of October, so our timing is impeccable now that we're just showing this now because he's just released this book actually. But he's done some groundbreaking um, work, and we'll get into what happens when birds actually what happens, can they not see it or so on. But
Sorry,
actually,
Christian, what's the book called again? Or this
Oh,
guy's name again?
the book is called Solid Air, a very good title, Solid Air. You know what, Georgia, I'm going to take the title. Yeah, I'm just going to copy this 1 second. I'll put it into the chat.
Oh yeah,
So I
I was
don't,
gonna do that if you say it, if you say his last name real quick,
okay,
I
here
can.
we go. Here you go. That's from, so his name is Daniel Clem, and the title is very appropriate. It's called Solid Air. What a brilliant title of the book. So it's just been released at the Hancock Wildlife Fund, not the foundation, but it's the Hancock house that sells books on birds that is distributing this. So it's actually very appropriate. So what I just wanted to tell you is in 2004, there was a comparison of fatal bird injuries from collisions with towers and windows that was published. And when I read that paper, there were about 500 specimens that they looked at. They looked at smaller birds and they looked at larger birds. They divided them, anything that was below, I think it was 39 grams, right? They just classified as a smaller bird and the other larger bird. And they looked at it, and now it was absolutely surprising. So the answer was most tower and window fatalities experienced no skeletal fractures, and no cervical fractures were found in either the tower or window kill samples, further confirming that the often cited cause of death, collision victims from a broken neck, I beg your pardon, is clear in error. And to come to the point of Stanley, it is brain hemorrhage, absolutely. Extravascular bleeding in the brain was what they found again and again. It was absolutely convincing. So that's also disturbing because I always thought when birds collide with windows, and very often they get up and I thought everything's fine. Sorry, it's not like that. They die a few hours later. They don't die immediately, but the bleeding kills them a few hours later. I'm sorry to say, but that's how severe it is, and that's why so many die. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really horrifying. So did you, when I was researching this, I came across a lot of information from wildlife rehab centers who are writing about when to bring a bird in. Because a lot of
Mhm.
times you go out there, you hear the window strike, you go out there and you can still see it. It's like maybe hopping around on the ground, but it seems fine.
Mhm.
And so they had some tips on when to know when to bring a bird in. Christian, did you read any of these or come across similar things?
I did too. Yes, yes, yes. But I don't have the link at the moment, George. I came across it, but I
Yeah.
forgot to put in the link. But you're absolutely right. There are recommendations of what to do. I either if you talk and I'll look for it quickly, or vice
Yeah,
versa.
yeah, sure. Um,
Whatever.
yeah, so like a lot of times, like you can tell with birds and other animals too, if they've had some sort of head injury, there's like head tilt, right? So they're holding their head kind of at an angle, maybe. And so that's like a sign that something could be going on. I mean, and also if they don't fly away, sometimes they will fly away after a moment, but even then, they might be in trouble. They just might be able to fly for the moment, you know. But definitely, if they're not flying, like that's a big thing. And I've heard again and again from wildlife rehabbers, like if it's not a baby animal and you can like get close enough to pick it up or something, then like it probably needs to be brought in because wild adult animals um, that aren't like habituated to people through feeding or something like that, but like normal wild adult animals don't let you just pick them up. So that means there's definitely something wrong. And Melody, I'm going to share her comment again. um, I'm gonna try to pronounce her last name, Melody Czempoja Strohicker. I'm so sorry for butchering that. She has it exactly right from what I hear. When a bird hits a window, just because it may fly away doesn't mean it's not injured. And that's exactly what we're getting at with the brain hemorrhaging stuff.
Exactly. It's very sad, actually. So let's talk a little bit, and Gentleman Ghost just asked the question that brings us to the next point. So what actually happens why do birds fly into windows? And it's the same reason if that people, first of all, I mean, we do see glass to some extent, but actually if it's perfectly transparent, we don't see it. I've seen these things on YouTube, and they're supposed to be hilarious, and I don't think it's funny when people walk into glass, because it's actually very serious. I always fail to find that sense of humor, but it's quite awful. I've seen people walk through glass. So there are two things that can happen here. The reason why we walk through glass is because we don't see the glass. So it's completely transparent, right? There's no reflection in this case. It's just transparent. And we see what's going on the other side and don't realize there's a barrier. That actually for birds is not the major problem, because birds wouldn't usually fly into buildings, right? The main problem that birds face is what we call reflection. So that's a reflection of windows. So if the inside of the building is darker than the outside, which typically happens when the sun shines, you get a lot of reflection on the glass. You get the internal, the reflection of glass is usually 4, 5, 6%, and then you have it on both sides. So that gives the perception as if the sky or something is continuing, and that's fatal for most birds, because they will think they will think the journey just goes on there and then suddenly hit the barrier. So it's that reflection that is the problem, really. And that's where most of the problems arise from. So it's the outer surface, and that causes probably up to 1 billion bird deaths. So it's the reflective one, not the transparent one so much.
Yeah, and it should be like noted too, like why is it exactly, Christian, that the reflections are such a problem? Right.
Yes, of course. And I wonder, you see, I mean, let's bring this picture back in, Georgia. Let's see if we can do that.
Yeah.
And get rid of this one. Wait a minute. There, let's get rid of that one. Oh, not me. I wanted to put the picture in large.
Oh, here I can do it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, now I messed it up completely.
No, you're fine. Yeah, so for one, it looks like the sky potentially, right?
That's it.
And the building I'm in has windows like this. If I can show you, you can't tell from the inside, but it has very big, very reflective windows. And these windows can be kind of appealing because they are supposed to be a little bit better for solar regulation sometimes. Like they help keep it from getting too hot inside sometimes by reflecting more. And like having it be a little bit shadier inside, but then you have this problem of the reflection. And like you said, even just the light difference, Christian, causes it to be more reflective when it's darker inside.
Well, that's exactly right. Have you tried from the outside to look inside a building when it's lighter outside? You hardly can look inside. That's exactly why. As soon as you brighten up the light inside, everything changes.
Look, I can make I have my bird mug. I can make it, I can make it like fly into the window. It's like, oh no. Anyways, sorry, I couldn't resist. I was drinking and then I saw. So yeah, one thing is they might not realize, because of the reflection, they might not realize they see this big window and they think they're just continuing to fly into the sky. But like another thing that can happen, and I have to actually upload the image real quick. Another thing that can happen is like birds, if they see a reflection and they see another bird.
Yes, absolutely.
Not recognize themselves. They might be defensive, like they think it's another bird and it's in their territory and they have to attack it. So these are kind of the two reasons why the reflectivity of windows can be a problem. Yeah.
That's such a good example, Georgia. I had that in Australia, actually. I had a bird doing exactly that, and I couldn't get it away from my mirror, from my driving mirror. It was just crazy. It was going on and on and on the whole time. But that's exactly what it is. Yes. Yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's this part. So how do we prevent it? And then we'll go. I also see a nice comment here from David Howden. Thank you very much, and we'll take that up too. So the prevention is incredibly easy, actually. Let's go and talk a little bit about that. Georgia, do you want to start, or
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely. I mean,
yeah.
so well, and I bet even people from the audience can brainstorm a lot of good ideas for like, oh, the reflection is the problem. What can we do? So one thing is to interrupt the reflection a little bit. So we have people sometimes put like decorations or decals on the outside of window. Oops, that's not a picture of what I thought it was.
That's okay.
So like you can get these stickers that are like dots, for example, or other patterns, and basically that keeps the bird from thinking that like, oh, this is just empty sky I can fly into. So it definitely won't hit the window like at speed. Oh, and I found an interesting fact. I forgot it. So oftentimes when birds are hitting the window, they're flying between 15 and 20 miles per hour. That's between 25 to 30
Ooh,
kilometers per hour.
that's
So they're actually
horrible.
going, they can be going pretty fast when they hit the window. Um, And yeah, something that I saw for a suggestion from one of the rehab places was like, if you ever hear like little thuds on your window, like,
Hmm.
maybe you don't know what happened to that bird or it flew
Hmm.
off or something, but like you can hear it when birds hit your window.
Oh yeah.
Those are the windows you should be putting this like you should be taking some kind of measures to keep birds from hitting it. Yeah.
Yeah, and to the dots, it's actually surprisingly simple what you could do there. I found actually a YouTube example. It was brilliant, and I'm just going to show. Let's see if those. This is the one with the
Yeah.
lines. Yeah,
Oh, and John Harley, he had it exactly. I learned
exactly.
last week the Baltimore Aquarium, the dot stickers will keep birds from crashing into windows.
Yeah,
Yep.
they do. That's exactly right. And there's a 4x2 rule, so it's quite simple. Draw 4-inch lines vertical 4-inch lines vertical, because think of the typical wingspan of an average small bird, right? 10 centimeters, 4-inch, right? So four-inch thin lines will prevent it, and you can still look through. Or 2-inch horizontal lines, distance 2-inch or 4-inch that way, right? That makes sense because birds are more long than they are tall. So that's where the 2x4 rule comes from. And it seems to be very effective, very simple.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't heard of that. So, are there any other? Oh, that we have another picture of the dots here too. Oh wait, are they?
Yeah,
No,
we have
that's not
quite a few,
dots.
yeah.
Just yeah, we have. Oh, and then what was Is this also just
This
showing?
is
Yeah.
so interesting. So what I heard also from, just put this up again, yeah, from Daniel Clem, who's the ornithologist who pioneered all this, is he was talking about glass that has patterns that you can only see in the ultraviolet. So it means what you see on the left-hand side, it's completely transparent, but what birds see is something completely different. I think that's a brilliant solution, really. And I would like to actually explore that myself a bit more, because wow, I think that should be implemented everywhere, because nobody can then complain that they can't, that this is disturbing their vision, their view or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, because often the same windows that are really problematic, these really big windows that have a gorgeous view, are the ones that look like just the sky. And so people don't want to go putting up dots and stuff like that. So this, yeah, ultraviolet vision stripes or stickers are a really good solution, it looks like. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm just
very cool.
trying to see so I don't forget David Howden's comment here. It made a long one.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you do you know
I
how
can uh, I
common?
can present it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
he
present
so
it,
this
please.
was a
Yes.
good question, and I
Hmm.
actually don't know the answer, but David Howden asked, "Do you know how
Hmm.
common this is in other countries?" Birders I know who have visited, and for context, David is out of the UK. Birders I know who have visited the US suggest dead birds around tall buildings on migration seems much bigger thing there than in the UK, but that's anecdote. Oh,
Yes.
a much, yeah, but bigger thing in the United States than in the UK.
Yeah, and I think I do know the answer to that because um, I looked a little bit also into the legislation again, thanks to to Daniel Clem. Excellent, the excellent comments that I found from him on internet. And I'm just going to, so that actually gets us into the legislation. So um, if you think about protection of birds, it really started in the somewhere around 1911, 1912. Um, between the United States and Canada, there was an agreement because they already found, and that's just due to hunting and a commercialization of killing birds, that there were some species, and there's a certain a certain type of pigeon I've forgotten, it was very common, it completely got extinct, so that they decided they have to do something. And that was the Migratory Birds Convention Act of 1917, and that's a Canadian law now. So that was updated in 1994, and that contains regulation to protect migratory birds, their eggs, nests, destruction from wood harvesting, hunting, trafficking, and commercialization. And to that point, David, so there has been some legislation. There are three types of legislations. The one is the national level, right? Then you have the regional level, and then you have the municipal level. Sorry. And on the national level, you have Canada, US, UK, Japan, and Russia. So there you are with the UK that have signed an agreement to protect birds from flying into windows. So they're all aware. So definitely the UK is part of this. What surprises me is that other countries like Germany, for example, where I come from, is not part of it. I don't know the answer to that. But is it a problem? Absolutely. It's a problem everywhere. I mean, windows have the same property everywhere, and we have big windows, right? The problem that they have with the national legislation is that courts find the interpretation confusing. So unfortunately, it doesn't really succeed, and that's why they go more than to the regional level. On the national level, they have the Federal Bird Safe Building Act of 2019, but it's under review. So this is a bipartisan, we're talking about the United States now, a bipartisan supported bill that would require public buildings incorporate bird safe building materials and architecture. But unfortunately, these bills, they take forever. They shouldn't, but they do, right? This is under review, and well, that's the way it is. So
Yeah.
regionally, yeah, sorry,
Real
Georgia,
quick,
go.
you
Yeah.
mentioned passenger pigeons, and several people are
Yes,
confused in the chat. Just real quick, passenger pigeons are they were a species that's now extinct. They're kind of a
thank you.
famous example in the U.S. and Canada, because they used to be extremely common bird here. They're a pigeon that would fly in these giant flocks, and now they're extinct because of people. So it's an example of a species that crashed and went extinct very quickly because of human activities, um, from being extremely abundant. So, yeah.
Good. And let's give you another quiz. Let's give everyone another quiz. Which city do you think has been leading? Which city do you think has been leading to make sort of bird safety for birds crashing or providing, sorry, preventing birds from colliding with windows? What a sentence. Which city in the world do you think has been leading that to do some positive changes?
So, how are you measuring leading? And also, I feel like this is a trap where it's okay, it's not going to be the United States, I don't think. I feel like this is like Canadian propaganda or something, or no.
This guy, you know who wrote this? Daniel Clem wrote this. He
Okay.
is a U.S. ornithologist.
All
Okay,
right.
so just to put things, it's not some Canadian. There's no propaganda when it comes to wildlife. We're all bad. Okay, let's just be clear.
All
There's
right.
nothing
All
that's
right.
good enough. Okay,
All right.
but it's just
So,
curious because yeah.
the
Yeah, you
city
would
that's
think it's San
taking,
Francisco. I would have, Kit, I would have thought the same. It happened to be Toronto, actually. That completely surprised me. I didn't know. Yeah. Toronto took it up very seriously and is implementing that. And big cities like also San Francisco they are actually following this now. New York. So yeah.
Canadian propaganda confirmed. No, I have seen a lot. Whenever it's fall, I see a lot of stuff from Toronto where like they definitely push the like lights out at nighttime. And this is another issue with windows, right? Not related to the reflectivity, but just related to the fact that windows let light out. And
Yep.
oftentimes, if they're open at night and you have lights on in a building, even just sort of like low safety security lights, like lights that are left on in office buildings, they're actually spewing a lot of light out into the nighttime through these windows. And that can cause a problem for birds and bats as well, because you're kind of, polluting the darkness basically with your
Yeah.
light. And it can be very confusing, especially if you're a bird that's migrating at night. So a lot of tiny birds migrate at nighttime because it's safer to travel at night, even though they're normally active during the day. They like flying around at night is like they make special. They kind of have like a special case for migration when they're doing all this traveling, and so they're out and about at night. And many of them actually use the stars to help them navigate. But
Hmm.
when you have all this light coming out of the buildings at night, it makes it harder for them to see the stars basically, and they can get disoriented. So if you have a building with windows that are open and don't have really good blinds or something, it's also good to keep the lights off at night, especially during this time of the year, September, October, November, when the birds may be migrating.
Yeah, we're getting some very good comments here from our viewers here. I'm just putting them up. It's all very relevant. Linda was saying if you use whiteboard markers and draw vertical lines on your window, it works very well. And exactly that was the YouTube video that I wanted to refer to. So that's a very good point. And David Howden has made a very good recommendation here on a good book. So I've just shown that. Yeah, and of course Georgia has a very valid point. I mean, light pollution is very difficult for animals. That's probably worth, I don't know, it's probably worth another probably one topic for us that we haven't really covered properly, right? Only partly through bats, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about it too much. I think maybe when we had our Aurora episode, we talked about it a little bit. I forget. It comes up often because it's linked to so many other topics like, windows or other things.
Oh,
But
I'm
yeah,
also going,
and go
yeah,
ahead.
I'm just going to put up this sort of to say there's also anti-Canadian propaganda here. The greenhouse light in Learnington, Ontario is horrible, greenhouse capital of North America, and I would completely agree with you. We have Point Pelee here, and it is a huge funnel for migration. Yeah, look, that's exactly a good point, right? So that's.
So are these like greenhouses for growing food or flowers?
I
Okay.
think that's what it is. Yeah, that's what Barbara's referring to. Absolutely. But let's let's talk a bit about the regional level. I mean, Kit was mentioning California, so absolutely California would always be leading whenever it comes to these things, and it's actually true. So I just want to read some of the things again. This was I'm just quoting Daniel Clem here on the legislation. I've taken this is all from him. Regional level. So there is the EPS Environmental Protection Act, Ontario 1990. California has the Green Buildings Act, it's voluntary. Minnesota has the Bird Safe Glazing 2015, it's mandatory, good for Minnesota. Maryland has something under review. Michigan, there you go. Michigan, Safe Passage Great Lakes. Washington, D.C., Bird Friendly Green. New York State, Bird Friendly Buildings Act 2011 under review. Oh, this list goes on. Let's see what else we have. Mandatory, Toronto, Markham, York Region, Vaughan, these are all in Ontario. So Ontario has very much made this mandatory. Mandatory also San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, Richmond, Alameda, Mountain View, all California. Portland, Oregon, yes. Highland Park, Illinois. Chicago's pending, well, that'll be a big thing. And New York City, December 2020. So that's good news. You see a lot of these big cities are looking at Calgary, Vancouver, Mississauga, all voluntary. UBC is University of British Columbia in Vancouver, is its own municipality, and they have implemented their own their own policy to save birds. And drafting, you have others: Waterloo, Surrey, that's where I live, Whitby, Saskatoon, and London. So there's a lot going on, which is good news.
Yeah, we have an interesting comment from James Bourne. It'd be interesting to see if the native birds learn to avoid buildings. This is something I hear a lot. And I mean, it is worth thinking about because animals do learn how to deal better with certain like human changes to the environment. But it can be really hard to learn when the consequence is death. Because if you die, if there's a pretty big chance that you're going to die, then it's like it's hard to learn to avoid it. But I think certainly some birds are at an advantage, right? Like birds that are less territorial, for example, and like trying to not so into trying to like attack their own reflection or dive bomb it, or birds that are just slower flying, like pigeons or something maybe, are going to be a little bit better off. But it can be quite challenging. It seems so simple to us, just don't fly into the window, but this can be quite a challenging thing for animals to learn. Yeah.
Yes, and here comes Gentleman Goes with a very interesting comment. I thought about that too. Would be interesting to see if native birds from New York, for example, will learn to avoid buildings. Sounds crazy, but learned behavior. So as far as we know, unfortunately, James, there's no evidence of that. All we know is that during the migratory period, there are more collisions than during the rest of the year. So I wish there were a way, but I don't think there is. No. You know, thinking again of how easy it is to implement measures, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 4-inch rule, just vertical stripes, or just take like Linda pointed out, just take a marker, put some white marks on. It's very easy, you know. It's really easy, and I should talk to myself too, because I should also be doing this, right? I'm also preaching to myself here. Okay, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and we do have Barbara Gordon comments that her pet Budgie has learned to avoid the mirrors and windows in her home. It is a little bit, it's easy, it's going to be easier. That's a good point, but it's going to be easier for your pet because it's exposed to these windows and mirrors much more often and in a less dangerous scenario. So it's probably not like building up it's harder for it to like build up lethal speed and hit into the window. It's not dying when it hits in the window. It's just kind of boinking around because it's inside if it does fly into it. So yeah, I always say like death is not a good teacher because once you're dead, you can't learn anymore. So like we were talking earlier about how these birds often die from brain hemorrhages from hitting the window and how fast they are when they fly into it. Often it can be, it's a challenging lesson to learn, I think. Yeah. Yeah, when we do have problems with bats flying into the windows too, and it's not quite as clear with the bats why that is actually. And part of it is that I'm going to share actually part of a video. I'll share my screen real quick. Let me just navigate to it.
Yes, birds are amazing.
Yeah.
I agree.
Present. Yeah, and with bats, it's a little bit less clear why they're flying into the windows when they can sense. They can echolocate. Oops. But I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is sort of slow motion of bats flying around, and you can sort of see them. They come right up to the smooth surfaces. And even though the smooth surface is going to bounce their echolocations back perfectly, but you still see them hitting into it. And part of their, I'm going to go back a little bit to the other smooth surface. Part of why they think that is because it's just so different than what the bats would encounter in nature. So I'm going to stop sharing now. But like the smoothest thing the bats would encounter in nature is probably like water, right? But even water is like not so smooth as this. So because it's like such a perfect bounce, the glass is such a perfect bounce back of their echolocation. They're not sure exactly why the bats even hit it because it is bouncing back their echolocation. But I think they're supposedly confused in some way because it's like such a perfect reflection. They're like, there's some thought that maybe the bats think it's water and that they can like drink from it or something. And nobody really knows why though. I was at a conference once where someone was making this argument that like the bats are confused by the glass because they think it's water, and so they think they can drink from it, and then they crash into it instead. And the guy sitting in front of me watching the talk just turned to the person sitting next to him and he goes, "I do not think the bats are so stupid." He was like French or something, you know what I mean? But I mean, it's like debated basically, given that we know the physics of the situation. Even it's still like, why are the bats flying into the glass? We don't know. But it's a problem even though the bats like don't break their necks or anything. I think they're more often physically fine than the birds are from these collisions.
Well, let me take a guess, okay, as a
Okay.
physicist at
Oh yeah,
this.
you want to guess?
And
Yeah.
I don't know anything, okay, about this. I have to just but my guess is the following. It depends on the refractive index, really, that they encounter at a specific frequency. So if you look at the refractive index, that's that air has the refractive index of 1,
Yeah.
water is about 1.3 something, and glass is also around that. So glass and water, at least to some extent, seem very similar. But bats have a completely different frequency. So I would, if I had to do a look at the answer, I would look at the frequency range or the refractive index of ultrasound in that region. I don't know it actually, but that's what I would look, because maybe the frequency response of glass is very different to anything else that that bats have ever encountered. That's my silly guess, okay? But that's where I would look at.
Yeah, I mean, Christian, maybe you should start looking into this, right? Because you have a lot of physics knowledge and a lot of wildlife interest. So maybe you're the perfect person to sort of crack this. Um,
I would love that topic. Yes, I would love it.
let's do it. Collaboration. We're going to be
Yeah.
collaborators in research too. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of articles on this, like back around in 2017.
Mhm.
And then it kind of, just because of this study that came out, and then it kind of dropped since then. So I think
Mhm.
it's a little bit of an open topic for us to potentially explore.
Okay, great. Here's another comment from David. That's a good one. Let's just put that on the screen. 1 second. Okay, here we go. Is there an equivalent to the dots and markings that would help? Well, that's for you, Georgia. Here you go.
Yeah, I mean, Wolf, I think so. I will say that well, this gets me back to like how much of a problem are the windows for bats. And I think in order to make the windows more visible to bats, you would have to make them like fuzzier or something. I mean, I guess maybe you could come up with some kind of film that's like still see-through but is like a little bit fuzzy or something. But I think that like something that bounces the sound differently would help. I guess not a little bit. I think it's just like the glass is so smooth. One line of thinking goes that maybe the glass is so smooth that it does like sort of unexpected things with the bounce back of the echolocation, and that's what confuses the bats. And then there's another, and people are like, and or maybe they think it's water and they try to drink from it. So I think figuring out why they fly into it would be helpful for trying to figure out how to get them to stop flying into it. But I would say this. Um, the bats are often, I think they're often flying slower, and they're often not sort of physically injured when they run into the window. But what happens is they are often knocked to the ground. And the problem then is the bat is on the ground, okay, but a lot of bats can't take off flying from the ground like birds can. Um, so actually, bats also hit this window that I'm in a lot. And of course, I get a call from like, or an email from like the building people or whoever sees the bat. And the bat is usually fine. It's just like sitting. In fact, the bats have actually, once the bat was dead, but all the other times they were like perfectly fine for a while after. And the thing is that they just can't fly again because they're stuck on the ground. So they need to be able to climb up something like a tree or something nearby, where then they can drop and swoop and get the air running under their wings again, and then they can fly. So I would say, like, maybe instead of trying to make the windows bat proof, it's a good argument to have like trees around buildings and stuff like that. That way the bats can like save themselves once they hit the window.
That's a good point. There you go. Trees play a very important part in this. That's good. Only you can't get trees, I guess, that are taller than 150 feet or whatever, right? There's a limit, and then it gets very difficult with tall buildings. So,
yeah. But I mean, like, even a little tree will help a bat like give something to fly from. Yeah, they only need to get up a few feet. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Good. Okay, excellent. So where are we now? So I think we've covered the world now.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered pretty much all the things I wanted to talk about. There were questions from way back, but now I don't remember what all of them were. Please don't be shy about reposting your question if we didn't get to it, because people ask such good questions, and then I forget. I will throw up this image real quick because we were talking about what a problem cats are in addition to bats.
Oh,
and
yeah.
A few episodes ago, I think it was like our wildlife friendly backyard episode. Oh, why isn't it letting me make this cat be bigger? Anyways, yeah, a few episodes ago, we talked about these colorful cat collars that help birds be able to see cats better.
That looks so funny. Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
If you can, keep your cat inside. But if you can't, for whatever reason, this is a better alternative than like the collars with the bells are, because the cats can learn how to stalk while keeping the bell silent, and the birds can see this. They're more attentive to colors than they are to sound, from what I understand. So the color just works better.
By the way, Shirley's asking about windmills. I think, Georgia, we should take the windmills up separately, because that's also looking, of course, at the world energy crisis and global warming and so on, and how does all the balance fit in. So I think that's worthy of another topic. I think, if I told you now, which is true, that the casualties in windmills are minute compared to the cat problem or the bird problem.
Oh yeah, we saw it earlier even.
Yes, but I don't at the same time want to dismiss that. I just say, in comparison to small, that doesn't mean it's not important. What always surprises me, Shirley, is that so much emphasis is put on windmills and so on, whilst you hardly ever hear any discussion about the windows and the cat problem, right? Not much at all. If you ask people in general, they say windmills are the problems and so on. So it's good to see everything in relationship.
Yeah. So I think that we will take up the windmills later. And as Christian was saying, actually, Christian and I have both worked like in the windmill, wind turbine industry. And so we both have a lot of thoughts on that. Christian, you've helped design windmills, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. We did offshore wind farms. It's a very, very interesting topic, So
and I've actually worked monitoring birds and bats killed at a wind farm. Like, this was like a summer job, way back in my history. But I walked, 10 miles a day at one point in my life, back and forth under wind turbines, collecting
way
the dead
back in your history. You're so young. Let's not exaggerate here. Come on.
Young.
Way back in my history. I should say that, not you.
Yeah. Oh, Barbara Gordon says, another issue here near Point Pelee, wind turbines. Yeah, that's pretty close to
me. We'll bring it up, Shirley. We will.
Yeah.
We will.
So this is a great segue. If you don't already, please subscribe to me and Christian, wherever it is that you're watching, and you'll be sure to see our future episode on windmills or as I like to say, wind energy and wildlife. Thank you everybody for participating in the chats and commenting. We have over 130 comments in the chats right now, and we got 5 awards. So thank you to those who donated through awards, including John Hardy, Stanley Skirvin, David Howden, Peter Bittner, and Heavenly Dew. We appreciate it so much, and it's great encouragement to keep going and spending some time each week researching topics, inviting guests, and thinking about these things.
Yeah, thank you so much for everybody, and we really appreciate your participation. Without you, this would be nothing. And I'll just want to close off on a comment here from something beautiful that Daniel Clem said. So let me just read this passage at the end. As the most powerful and dominating life form on Earth, we have the responsibility to protect the species which share our planet. Our world depends on healthy biodiversity to ensure sustained health for ourselves and those generations to follow. So, on that note, thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, and I have to add one more note, which is our guest next week is Dr. Iroro Tanchi. And so she's a Nigerian bat conservation researcher, and she's won a lot of awards for her conservation work. And we're so excited to talk to her. She's going to be a great guest. So join us next week for bat conservation in Nigeria.
What episode number is it then?
I would guess somewhere around 22, maybe. We're in the 20s now.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. We're in the 20s already. We'll catch up with your age very soon. You'll see. When we're at 22, we'll catch up. Okay. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.